Hello and welcome back to the channel. Bed lights. Bed lights. Not something I have ever thought much about in the past, but I guess in a classic don't know what you got till it's gone. I had my first set of bed lights on my Gladiator. Came on automatically, lit up the bed. Didn't realize how nice they were until I didn't have them, especially with a tonneau cover. So what we're going to do today is we are going to install a set of bed lights. They are not a standard option on most, at least on the Ram 1500, unless you ask for it. In this case, rather than go and try and rig up something, bought a OEM kit that Chrysler offers. So, cargo bed lamps for the Ram, and that is a pretty thick instruction booklet. Ton of zip ties, so that should tell us something. We are going to be putting in a wiring harness. So, got our lights, and most importantly, we have our harness. Not a real difficult overall installation. Basically, it follows the factory harness down the frame. As you can see along there, we're going to lift the truck up. We're going to take the rear and the front tires off. We're going to take the fender well liners out, run the harness. Then we have to run it in through the firewall into the cab area and wire it into, I guess it's the computer that's in there. You have to basically plug it into plugs on the computer. Then we have to, unfortunately, take it to the dealership and have a flash done. So I'm going to go ahead and lift the truck up, get the tires and wheels off on the driver's side, get the fender well liners out of the way, and then we'll come in and highlight particular parts of the installation. I'm not going to bore you with trying to film as I run the harness. I'll show you how it's run once it's done, but should be pretty straightforward, running it right along the top of the frame rail down the entire truck. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Okay, tires and wheels are off, fender well liners are out. I have to add that this is a 5th gen Ram 1500, this kit. So this applies to the 5th gen Ram series pickups, 1500s and the 2500s. Now, from what I understand and what I've read, many of the 2500s actually have the wiring already in place, and you just have to find the plugs over in this area, because the lights are going to come into the bed back in here. We're going to pop those plastic pieces out on the side. So as you can see, by taking the fender well liners out, you got much clearer access to the frame rail, and you're basically just going to follow the factory harness with the new wiring harness. That's why they give you so many zip ties. You're going to be using the ground lug right here. Then once we get it up front, again, we'll be coming along the frame rail. The instructions do show you very clearly where to run it. And then we have to then get this light to stay in place. Then we got to get the wire inside. And from what I understand, I think you're able to go right through where this grommet is here and put the wires in, or up top here. I've seen the directions, I think, say to go up top here, but I've seen people coming through here in other videos. And so we're going to go ahead. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go and run the wiring harness, get it into place, and then I'll come back, show you the path of that. Then we'll go over installing the lights and plugging the lights in, and then finally bringing the wire into the cab and where it gets installed into the factory plugs underneath the dash. All right, so let's go ahead and get that wiring harness run. All right, have our harness installed. See it running along top of the coil spring. You come over, go over the frame. Here's the lead for the driver's side light. Then I brought the spare tire down. I tell you in the instructions to do it. You possibly could do it without it, but it definitely makes it easier to come over and run the wire. And we brought it right over to where it's hanging down here. We'll be fishing it up to where the lights are in the bed. Now, as you can see here, we got plenty of tie wrap scraps on the floor. They give you a big package of them. Definitely use them. Gets it nice and secure. Ooh, got one there I missed. I got to trim that one. And now in the instructions, they actually have you running the wire through this bed mount and then strapping the wire to that. I did not like that. I did not want the wire resting on the metal. So I ran it behind it with the wiring harness. Then obviously it runs behind the body mount. We run down, hold on, let me just get over into position here. We run right down the harness, rest of the way. Then it goes through that cavity, right up in there. And then we come into the driver's side wheel well, where we then run right up alongside that harness. And that pretty much is the routing of the wiring harness. Now I'm going to lower this down so I can show you where it goes into the cab, what you have to do there. And then we'll bring it down and actually I'll probably put the fender liners all back in because at that point we'll be done outside here. Put the tires back on, then I can get it back on the ground. We can do the hookup of the lights in the bed, and then I can get the door open and get the dash panel open to show where the wires get connected in the cab. Okay, so our next step is going to be to get our lights installed. Now I have a spray-in bed liner, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a sheetrock knife, just score around the plastic cap before I use a pry tool to go ahead and open them up. All right, both of those pieces are out cleanly. If you don't have a spray-in bed liner, like this is a Line-X bed liner, they obviously had these pieces in while they sprayed them, so scoring it just makes it easier to get these out. You don't risk tearing your bed liner. And then I just trimmed around the edges, make sure there was no high spots. And if you don't have a bed liner, then they should just pop right out. Shouldn't be a problem at all. Now with the lights, there are two different lights. We have one that has a switch, and this would be the passenger side with no switch. And then there's one with a switch that goes on the driver's side. That's why the driver's side of the harness has two plugs on it, because this allows you to, not only will the lights come on when you open your door or you hit the cargo light button in the cab, but then you can come back here and click this button and turn the lights on as needed. So I'm going to go ahead and fish the wires up. Then we'll bring those up, get the lights plugged in, and put into place. Okay, we've got our wires up through the holes. Now to plug the lights in, obviously they're just, passenger side's very simple, there's only one plug. On the driver's side, there are two plugs, and they, other than color, they look almost identical, but they are actually keyed. Internally inside the plug, this one has a groove in the middle, this one has it offset to one side, so they will go into their respective plugs. And then once they're plugged in, we'll click them right into place. And that is how the lights look when installed. Now when the lights go in, they clip into the bottom. You slide the bottom in first, and then you tip them up, and then there's a tab on the top that catches. This one was a little difficult. I had to trim some of the bed liner material because it wasn't recessing in far enough to catch the upper tab. This one worked fine. Okay. All right, so lights are installed. What I'm going to do next is lift the vehicle back up, make sure the wires coming up to the lights are secured, get my fender well liners in the rear back in, get the rear tire back on. Then up front, we're going to have to play it a little differently. What I'm going to do up there is I'll put the tire back on, get the truck off the lift so I can move the truck back enough to get in the door and get the wiring done. And then I'll have to just jack it back up, take the tire off, and put the fender well liner back in once we're done there. Okay, we've got the wire tucked up and run through the firewall way up in here. You see that gray thing? There's a little nipple on it. You'll see it in the instructions. It's kind of hard for me to get the camera, get enough light up there to get the camera up there. But you cut the end off that little nipple and you got to push the wire right through there. And then they tell you to bundle up the rest right here because only a certain amount of that wire will fit through. Then it gets too thick in diameter to go through. And then what you have to do is pull it through under the dash. Let me go under the dash. All right, so you have to open up underneath your dash and pull the wire. Let me see if I can get it on camera here. It's way up in the back there. It's kind of hard to see, at least on camera. Once you get the light back there and you get your head under there, it's not so bad. But quite frankly, then you pull the wire through. You got both wires here. This thin portion of the wire is able to come through very easily. The thicker cable will not pull through that grommet. So the next step is with the wiring panel that's under there, we have to remove two of the sockets, C1 and C7, because we're literally going to have to repin two of those sockets and get these plugged in to certain spots in those sockets. Unfortunately, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get that on film, so I will go ahead and see what I can do with that, but the directions are pretty self-explanatory with each one. C1, C7 shows you which pin you have to pull out, the color, wire, and then you plug it back in. And then the rest has to get redone or programmed at your dealership. So let me go ahead and get those plugs undone and see if we can get them plugged in. I've got the C7 connector out, and when you take these out, you're going to see you got these levers. It's going to be locked in like that, and you got to reach above it, depress this button, and then swing the lever. In this case, since this one points upward, and that will unlock it so that it slides, so that it comes out of the panel. The connector that's inside of it is actually right there. That slides right back inside of this on the back side. There's this little tab here. You press that to the side and you can slide it out. On this one, it says pin 16, which would be this one right here where I have the wiring harness to. It's a purple with a brown wire with a violet tracer. There was a wire in there. You pull that out. That's what the instructions say to do, and then they tell you just to tape it back. And then this just slides in. Now to get these out, you see in the side here, you'll see there's little raised ridges on these. You just push it with a small object and you'll be able to slide it. It'll unhook and you'll be able to slide it right out. And then when you go ahead and reconnect it when it's all done. I'll go put the connector back together and show you what it looks like. Okay, so here's the connector all back together. So now I'm going to go and put this in, and I'm going to tape this up to the top. I'll reconnect that into the panel up located on the side of the wall here, and then I'll have to reach up real high to get C1, which is the one that we need for the other wire. Okay, once you have repinned both your C1 and C7 connector and reinstalled them, your installation essentially is complete, short of going to the dealership and having your vehicle reflashed. It's very difficult to get to it. You have to take this panel down and then reach up. It's on the side here, but up behind the dash. But you can get up there. It is a tight fit. Just take your time. You'll be able to disconnect the connectors and pull them down to where you can work with them just below the dash and get them pinned. But it's pretty straightforward the way you repin them and insert the new pins. Once that is done, you can reconnect your battery's negative terminal and installation is complete. Vehicles should now function as it does. The lights will not work though, again, until you get it reflashed. So, gonna go make that phone call and get this up to a buddy of mine and get it flashed. Be back with the end results. Okay, so we have the computer flashed, the lights are flashed, and how this works now: doors are closed, vehicle is unlocked, lights are off. You can hit this switch when you're back here and your doors are closed. You'll activate the lights, and it actually activates the cargo lights on the back of the cab as well, giving you some light under the tonneau cover. These lights will also come on when you open your door. So when you open your door, the lights will come on. If you're in the vehicle and you need them on, there's a dash switch that you hit that will also light them up. As well as when your vehicle is locked. Let's go ahead and lock that real quick. Obviously the lights are off, everything's locked, but then when you unlock your vehicle and your lights come on, the bed lights will come on as well. So that completes it. The flash at the dealership was very simple. Took maybe 10 minutes. They have to add a sales code into the to the VIN number of the vehicle, and then that was it. Then they work as they should. So that completes it. I have to say that for the cost of the kit from Mopar, which was I think it was about $180, the time it takes for the installation, if you're ordering a vehicle and you have the option to have these come in from the factory, definitely the way to do it. But as an aftermarket setup, or I should say afterthought setup, using the OEM wiring harness and using them, setting them up from the factory with a factory setup as opposed to basically wiring in your own lights, I definitely think it's a viable option. Works well, fits perfectly, and should basically operate flawlessly with the vehicle. So that's it. Hope this helps anybody out there who's considering installing this on their vehicle. If you like what we're doing here, please like and subscribe. If you have any comments or suggestions, feel free to leave them below. Thank you very much. Have a great day.